Alrighty guys, we're back at it. We're doing our Tamiya pull trailer build. We're going to do step 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So, as you can see, I've already started on step 6. I've got the deck kind of in place right now. What we need to do still is add our B6 and B7, which are these guys here. They just go in right in this front hole here, front two holes, with a MA9 and 2 flange nuts. Oop. So I throw that one on the ground. Now the MA9 is going to be the shorter of the two. It's a 3x10 screw and not the 3x12 screw. So get those put in. Now once we've got these two pieces in and tight, like so, we're going to flip over and we're going to put our screws in, which are the MA8s, they're the longer screws. I'm going to put them in so that way when I flip it back over and put the next step on, it'll be easier to work with. So when you're flipping, just kind of squeeze it and it'll lock most of the screws in. I lost these back too real quick. And now you can see, well, got 3 of them in. It'll make lining up things easier. So this piece that we built earlier just drops in to the screws we have set in place, like so, and then get held on by a flange nut. This piece goes on the front 2 screws between the 2 towers, between these 2 pieces we put on earlier. Just put a screw on, or a nut on. Okay. So these 2 are easier to put on this way. So so, and then we'll just put the rest of them in real quick. Now this piece, once you've got this flat bracket in, because we put the standoff on, it won't lay flat anymore. So just remember that as you're working with it, you can't just lay it on the flat deck anymore because it just won't do that. Now, you can see I already mounted these two brackets. That's also part of step 6. You just want to make sure that they're flush with the frame rail when you put it on. Cinch all these up. Quarter turn to tight. And then we'll put 2 more screws on to hold the front part of the bracket in. So this part here, you can see just slides between the frame rails. These holes right here line up with the holes right here. So once you've got those lined up and pushed in, they go on with your last 2 screws for step 6, which is the MA10s, or the coarse threaded screws. Just remember, you're going into plastic, so don't over tighten them. Like that. And we're going to end up with something like that looks just like this. So we'll set that aside real quick. The next step, step 7, we're going to be building our leg. The leg's going to go together with a bunch of plastic parts. You got an A4, B4, so A4, B4, and then you've got a A16, A5, A14. This is A2. It's a little guy, don't forget it. And A3. So to start, we're going to take A4 and we're going to take our MB18. And you can see A4 has kind of got a little hook. So that hook is actually what locks the leg in the upright position, or the lower position, I should say. We go ahead and stick the MB18 in the hole up here that's not the hook portion, and that's where our spring is going to attach. So we put MA4 right there in between the two, and then we put our spring in right there. So it goes, this pin, which is MB1, goes through the hole in B4, through the spring, through the hole in A4, and then back into B4. So once you've got that done, you can then take the spring and hook it under that screw we just put on, which locks it up like this. So that's how that's done. Next step is we're going to go ahead and install our leg. So our leg just drops in like so, and we have another spring, which is your MB3. That's going to go through this hole right here in the setup, and then around the post. Once you go around the post, you're going to take your A16, and it's just going to sit in that hole like that, and you're going to hold it together with an an MA12, which is just this tiny little coarse threaded screw. It's 2 by 8 mil. Like so. So now we take our spring, which you just hook with your driver, and it's going to go over, if I can get it out enough, it's going to go over this pin right here. So it's going to look like that. You can see it's over, and then when you pull, it causes it to spring back in. Once you got that in, you take your A3, and it sits down and locks that whole assembly together like so. There's no screw in that one, so we don't have to worry about it. Once that's done, the whole assembly gets squished together, and we're going to put a few more screws in. You got 4 more of the A12s or MA12s. Get in so we don't have to squish this so hard. So that's how our leg works. And the 12s, the MA12s, go in the 4 corners, and then we're going to put a longer screw in with the A2, the plastic A2 part, to hold, to like act as a retainer for that little rod we put in. It's over here somewhere. There we go. So the A2 just goes on like this, and you can see that the A2 has a little step out, a little notch right there. That's where the rod sits. So when you're putting it on, make sure that the notch in the A2 is actually facing the rod, and the rod sits between the notch. Alrighty, so that's how we do our leg. Alright guys, we're back. So step 8, we're going to be building our suspension here. I already built 1, you don't need to see me build 2. It's real simple. You get, what's that, a B2 and a C14, and they just kind of bush up against each other on the bulb portion of your spring. You can see the spring has a little piece sticking up, which is just the rivet to hold everything together. And then you'd get your U-bolts going like so, and then your metal plate like this, and then you just put 4 flange nuts on. So, and you tighten them down. When you're tightening these, make sure you do it like kitty corner, or don't do the one super tight. Step on, do it like you would do a real car's tires. Just kind of cross tighten, and that's going to keep everything as centered as you can possibly keep it. So, just like that. And then once you're done with that portion, you've got 2 metal brackets, which are your MB4s. They go on to the ends, and this is what attaches to the axles. So, tighten those down. They go on with the short collared screw. It's an MB16. There is a long collar and a short collar, so make sure you get the short collar. And make sure you're getting all the heads facing the same direction. I didn't do it on this one. And that's going to make for ease of installation. and it'll keep everything from binding up. So we'll just fix this real quick. Alrighty, now we're going to go ahead and get our frame back. This guy here, and we're going to be working upside down on it, so we'll just stick it right there. You're going to need your 2 brackets that are shaped like this, and these are your suspension brackets. They go on each side. So they go on with MB9s, which are your 3x10. And they're going to be 2 each. They go into a flange nut, so they go on and then into a flange nut, and then your suspension goes on over that. And in this step, we're also going to install our leg, our single leg, for the front end. So, get these tight real quick, and then we'll get the springs attached. Alright, so when you're attaching your springs, make sure you do it with the screw sides in, and that's going to go ahead and give you a better fitment and easier moving. So you're going to take your MB2, which is a collar. It's going to go through, and then it's going to be held in place by MA6. It's a pretty long screw. We just got to find the right ones. It's still flying across my table. Stainless ones. So it goes through here, into the flange, and then up against the frame. And like I said, make sure your nuts are facing out, so it'll less binding issues and wear issues down the road. And that just gets held on with a flange nut. Just tighten it up. Same on the other side. You should be able to move freely, so you're not all bound up. And then our leg goes on the outside here using 2 of the MB12s. It's a big long black one I just had. And they go through the outside like so, and through the frame, and then held on with 2 flange nuts. Now I don't think there's anything really stopping you from doing 2 legs. You really don't need to, but if you had an extra kit lying around or an extra set of legs off of another kit, you could do that. Come on. Now the upper screw is also going to go through the ear on the bracket, on this front bracket we put on earlier, this front plastic piece. I'll show you that. Because we also have to add another screw, which is an MB14, which is just a short guy, and a flange nut through. You can see right here, got that ear, and we just put a screw through, and that's just to lock that in place. The other side's held on, of course, by the screws that hold the leg in place. These ones are going to be held on by that one screw. So we'll set that aside, flip the page, and we're going to start building our axle. 11 and 12, 10, 11, and 12, and 9. So step 9 is where you build your axles. They have the E-clips on them. I already put the E-clips on because it's a pain in the butt, and you're showing me struggle with it. You'll struggle with it yourself. So once you've got those, they just drop into the axle housing like so. As you can see, I'm using bearings and not the plastic bushings they give you. These are just the Traxxas 5116 bearings. They're the common size for all the Tamiya gear. So once you got those in, just drop your MB13 to 3x20 screw in with a flange nut. Tighten it down, and you're set. Now I've already done the other one. I've already got the wheels and everything on. So to get the axle attached now, we go to step 10, and we set up with these brackets here that go on like this on both sides. And you want to make sure that your piece here is hanging out over the edge better. You want to hang out towards the rear on the rear axle and towards the front on the front axle. And they just attach to the leaf springs with 2 of the MB13s. So situated. Now you should Loctite these if you're gonna never take it apart. You can stick a little Loctite on it, and that'll help keep it in place. So once you've got those on, you want to hang your drag links, which are these guys. You got a C17 and a C13. Pay attention to direction, because you can see that this side is big and a little bigger than this side. You want to put this up against your A-frame bracket right here, and that just goes through and gets a lock nut. Goes through your A-frame bracket and gets a lock nut. Like so. Same on the other side. And And that's being held on with the MB15. It's the shouldered screw, the longer version. Because the kit comes with two different versions. You got these shorter ones, and then you get longer ones. So cinch that down. Now the short ones go through on the top, and they get a lock nut on have a little difficulty here, of course. We'll do both sides real quick. And when you're putting these on, make sure that you're pushing them all the way through, because the shoulder actually goes through the bracket on both sides and sticks out just a little. So we'll wait and tightening those. We'll go ahead and build a shock. Now, I've already got a built one here. Those just go into the back hole with a flange nut. Just go on like that, and then you use your short collared MB16 to hold it in place, and that gets a nylock. Now to build your shocks, we'll set this aside. Build your shocks. What you need is your shock body and cap. You're gonna need your linkage for your shock mount, and it's a B9. So what you do is you take your screw, your MC2, and stick it all the way through, and just kind of start this. And what I do is I just take an extra screw and stick it through the hole on your B9, and that gives you something to hold on to so you can screw it together. So, and remember, you're going into plastic, so just go until it's tight, nice and snug, and you're done. You drop your spring in, which is your MC1, just looks like a pin spring, and screw your cap on, and that's how you build a shock. Now, the shocks go on using this brass collar, and the tall part of the collar actually goes into the frame, so it's the screw goes through that the collar through the big end and then into the frame, and that's what lines up the shock in the proper distance off the frame, because your brackets for your shock mounts are on your axles are outside of the frame, so you want to step off the shock too so you don't get any binding. Alright, and then your step off goes your screw, or your screw with the shoulder, which again is your MB16, just goes through with a nylock. Alright, and you're going to end up with this. And this is going to wrap up this build video. I'm just going to tighten these on my own, but like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you guys are thinking, and yeah, Speedy Mech signing off.